Gimel Daled. If two potters were walking one after the other, and the first one stumbled and fell, and the second one stumbled over the first one is liable for the injuries of the second one. The one that came with his jug, and another came with his beam, and this one's jug broke on this one's beam and is exempt. He is exempt, since this one has the right to walk, and that one has the right to walk. If the owner of the beam was first and the owner of the jug second, and the jug broke, the jug broke on the beam, owner of the beam is exempt. But if the owner of the beam stopped, he is liable. If, however, he said to the owner of the jug, stop, he is exempt. If the owner of the jug was first and the owner of the beam second, and the jug broke on the beam, he is liable. But if the owner of the jug stopped, he is exempt. If, however, he says to the owner of the beam, stop, he is liable. The same applies if one comes to with his candle and this one with his flax. The two were going to the public domain, one running and one was walking, and both were running, and they judged one another, and both are exempt. Okay.
Hamavakeach b'rishus hayachid. So a guy is chopping wood. And now what happens is a splinter of wood flies out. We're not talking about the Rotzech B'Shogeg over here. We're just talking about Stam Nezikin. Okay, but he's chopping wood and V'hizik b'rishus harabim, and so a bit of wood flew out and hit somebody in the rishus harabim. Or b'rishus harabim v'hizik b'rishus hayachid, or he was chopping in the rishus harabim and something flew off and hit somebody in his private home, or did damage, broke his window. B'rishus hayachid v'hizik b'rishus hayachid, or he was chopping in his own yard and a splinter flew out and hit somebody in a different rishus hayachid. Chayiv. This is basically Adam Muad Leolam. He is always warned, and if he's doing stuff that's going to involve chopping causes splinters. It's your responsibility to make sure that you don't cause any damage. Okay. Shnei shvarim tamim shechavlu ze es ze. Okay, so here is an interesting case where these two animals injured each other, but we got to say that they're almost like separate instances, or where they both sort of attacked each other simultaneously. Because if it was a case where one animal attacked the other, and then the other one came around to defend itself, the animal that was attacked first would be pater. So what we have is two animals who both eyed each other out and then charged each other simultaneously, and they each did damage to each other. So mishalmin kamos b'mosar chatzi. So whatever the difference is in the damage, so let's say one did 100 damage, the other did 50 damage. So then whoever owes more is going to have to there's a 50 that's between them, and since both of these animals mishtama are tam, they only pay chatzi nezek, so he'll pay 25 because that's the difference. Now things start getting interesting. Oh wait, Shnei Moadim also is what you'd expect. If both of them were muad and they were both warned, and so then they're going to end up paying nezek shalem, mishalmim b'mosa nezek shalem. So whatever the difference is in the damages, he'll pay in full. Now starts getting interesting. Echad tam ve'echad muad. One of them is tam and one of them is muad. Muad but tam. So if what the muad damaged exceeds what the tam damaged, then the owner of the muad has to pay nezek shalem on the difference. Tam b'muad, if the tam caused more damage than the muad caused, mishalem b'mosar chatzi nezek, then he must pay of the excess half damages. Now this is actually an interesting thing because the Mishna is not 100% clear how you do the calculation. Where do you put the brackets? Of you got this minus this divided by 2. But where do you put the brackets? Do you put the brackets on the difference divided by 2, or do you put the brackets on the divided by 2 and then do the difference? The Mishnah isn't clear on that, and it comes down to machlokes actually between Rashi and Rambam. Rambam looks at it, and I remember this in sort of the rationalist way that you split what, and why do I think it's rationalist? Because this is what I would have thought, is that you look at the damages independently, just completely independently. You look at the tam, how much damage. So let's say our situation is that the tam is worth the tam does 50 of damage. The tam does 200 damage, and the muad does 50 worth of damage. Okay. So now do you look at this as 150? The difference is 150, and therefore he must divide by 2 and pay 75? Or do you look at it that it's that the tam did 50 or did 200 damage, and therefore he owes 100, but on the other side the muad did 50 damage, so then he subtracts 50 and now he only has to pay 50. You see, so it makes a difference. Do you calculate the half on the difference, or do you calculate the half on what he did damage and then calculate the difference? So Rambam says you first calculate what each one owes independently, and then you split the difference. Okay. Rashi says you first calculate the damage and the difference in the damage, and if the owner of the tam is in excess, then he splits that in half. But there's another little wrinkle in this, which isn't mentioned explicitly in the Mishnah, is that when you've got a muad, the muad pays from whatever assets the owner has. But when it's a tam, he only pays up to the value of the animal. So let's say that the animal itself, the tam animal itself, was only worth 80 in the first place, and the muad did 50 damage, so now the animal's only worth 30. So even if he has to pay, if he has to pay 50, it's capped at the remaining value of the animal, which is 30. So he says, take the animal, and that's it. You don't I don't have to pay you any more than just giving you the animal. So that's another little wrinkle in it. Anyway, carrying on with the mathematics of it. If you have two men who injure each other, since people are always considered muad, they pay full damages. So whatever the difference is in the damage, they split the difference. Adam b'muad muad ba'adam. If a person got into a tangle with an animal, don't even ask how this happened. But if they're both muad, then again it's u'mashalem b'mosa nezek shalem. Whoever did more damage pays the difference. Adam b'tam ba'adam. If a person got involved in a fight with a tam animal, however, then it's the same as if the tam got involved with a muad. So mishalem b'mosa nezek shalem. So if the person did more damage, then he pays the difference in full. But tam ba'adam. But if the animal did more damage than the person, then he pays chatzi nezek. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Af tam shechavel ba'adam mishalem b'mosa nezek shalem. He says when it comes to a person, a tam must pay nezek shalem. But the halacha is like the Tana Kama. Okay. Shor shavim maneh shenagach shor shavim masayim. So here we have a practical case of what we've just discussed. So you've got two oxen. One is worth 100, and it killed an ox that's worth 200. And the carcass is worthless. Okay. In this situation where the carcass is worthless, let's say you pushed it off a cliff and it fell down the cliff, and you're not going to retrieve that carcass for anything. Okay. So notel is ashore. So because the damage is 200, but the animal itself that did the damage is worth 100, which is the amount that he owes anyway, because it's chatzi nezek. Notel is ashore. Then he takes the animal and it's all square. Shor shavim masayim shenagach shor shavim masayim. What happens if an ox worth 200 kills an ox that's worth 200? Okay. So now he owes 100 because he's paying chatzi nezek. Amar Rabbi Meir. So this is Rabbi Meir's al ze ne'emar umachru es hashor achai v'chatzu es kaspo. So they'll sell the living ox and split the money, because it's worth 200 and each one is going to get 100. Why? Because the owner has to pay him 100 for the chatzi nezek. Amalo Rabbi Akiva v'chein halacha. You're right. That is the halacha. Kiyamtu machris ashor hachai v'chatzu es kaspo. Okay, so you found a case where we can implement exactly what the Torah says about selling the shor hachai and splitting its money. V'lo kiyamtu v'gam es hamesi achetzun. We got to find a case where also the carcass is available and we split the value of the carcass. כן. ואיזה? זה שור שווה 200, שנגח שור שווה 200. So both animals are worth 200. Okay. והנבלה יפה 50 zuz. The animal's dead, but he can sell it to the goyim for 50.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does he do? שזה נוטל חצי החי וחצי המת, וזה נוטל חצי החי וחצי המת. So how's it going to work? Let's just do the math in here. First of all, how much damage did he do? He did 150 damage. So what's he ultimately going to have to pay? He's going to have to pay 75. All right, now how's that going to work? If technically speaking, what happens if you take the two animals and the live one and the dead one and sell them both, right? So it's 200 plus 50. Okay, so we've got 250 and now you split that in half. Each one that's 125. So what's happened is that if each walks away with 125, that's exactly what would come out because effectively the owner has the owner of that's causing the damages. If he had just left it the other way and with that the owner would just sell it for 50 and now he has to pay 75, he'd have to sell his own ox and for 200 and give the other guy 75. So in either case, both of the owners are left with 125. So the math works out in this particular case. Anyway, that's more of an academic discussion. All right, let's do what we can.
Okay, I have.
Let's go Kedushin Daled Zayin.
One second. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if a non-Kohen married a proselyte, his daughter is qualified to marry a Kohen. If a proselyte married the daughter of a regular Jew, his daughter is qualified to marry a Kohen. However, if a proselyte married a proselyte, his daughter is disqualified from marrying a Kohen. This both applies to both a proselyte and a freeman, but even until 10 generations, unless his mother is of Jewish descent. Reb Yossi says, even if a proselyte married a proselyte, his daughter is qualified to marry a Kohen. One who says, this son of mine is a mamzer, is not believed. But even if they both say concerning the fetus in the womb, he is a mamzer, they are not believed. Rabbi Yehuda says they are believed. If someone authorized his agent to give his daughter in a condition and he went and gave it to in condition, if his was first, his condition is valid. If that of his agent was first, his condition is valid. If it is not known, they both give a get. If they desire, one may give a get and the other may marry her. Similarly, if a woman authorized an agent to accept her condition and she went and accepted her own condition, if hers was first, her condition is valid. If her agent's was first, his condition is valid. If it is not known, they both give her a get, and if they desire, one may give her a get and the other marry her.
Okay. Gets him.
We have Dalit. A slave who takes a captive and they redeem him if so to be a slave, she shall be subjugated. If a free man, he shall not be subjugated. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, in either case, he shall be subjugated. A slave for whose master designated as a payment for a debt to another and then freed him by right of law, the slave would not be liable at all for the sake of the general good. They can compel this master to free him, and he writes a bid for the value. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says he does not write; only the one who freed him does. One who is half slave and half free works one day for his master, one day for himself. These are the words of Beis Hillel. Ben Shammai says to them, you have provided a solution for his master, but for himself you have not provided a solution. He cannot marry a slave because he is half free. He cannot marry a free woman because he is half slave. Shall he remain idle? But this was not the world created only for propagation. As it says, created is not a waste, it formed it to be inhabited. Rather, for the sake of the general good, his master compelled to free him, and he writes a bond for half his value. Subsequently, both Hillel and taught in accordance with the words of Shammai. If one sells a slave to a Gentile or to someone outside Eretz Yisrael, he goes free. Captives may not be redeemed for more than their value for the sake of the general good, and captives may not be helped from escape for the sake of the general good. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, for the best benefit of thy captive, Torah scrolls, factories, and mezuzos may not be bought for Gentiles for more than two for their value, for the sake of the general good. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to stop there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good day.
Great day. Enjoy. Thank you.